First time I became aware about being me was when, back in childhood, I discovered the need to hide from others. I'm not saying it as in becoming conscious of who I was or how important I was, but about knowing that I simply am. And also, this wasn't so much about concealing something specific from others, an object or an issue that troubled me, or about ghosting in some nook where they cannot find me. Just the urge to hide from anything and everything. How addictive it felt. Hiding became my lifetime mirror, let alone this everything else is blurred. Yet everything else can make a clean-cut sense when I keep it inside. Then that certain thing strips in my mind from any accident or draining consequence and bleeds an aurora borealis, like the play of lights across this island's lake. A nervous smile and a cough, give or take. That's what I was rehearsing in my mind after the reporter who hooked me up this morning left for a phone call to pick up her crew. I thought this would be a nice way to start an interview. It sounds intriguing and serious, like a guy who goes the distance of taking risks. What kind of risks, Mr. Kadik? The reporter would then ask in her mellow voice. A sad smirk from me. But give it time, okay? I can't remember the last time I had an interview. Maybe because it wasn't something special or big. The story that won me that Q&A was still at the beginning. Despite what others might think, I'm not, and have never been, into becoming popular or seasoning my name. I actually enjoy hiding. Low profile, less casualties. That's one of the reasons I came to live on this island all by myself. But it also had to do with the museum, I guess. I was about to dismiss that Times reporter. By the way, what takes her so long? But there was something in her attitude. No, it wasn't about her, as rude and cynical as this may sound. On her neck, as she flapped her hair, I could catch a glimpse of a scratch, looking like an I Ching hexagram. Good fortune if you stay on course. I thought she would say the hexagram like scratch, and her voice got all mixed up in my head. Yeah, her voice, mellow yet slightly dramatic with a nicotine tinge. A nicotine voice that seems to rest on a lion's roar. Nadia, the reporter reminded me of her. The past days, weeks, months were hard on me and on everyone. The flimsy peace is once again threatened. Terrorist attacks everywhere. My creation and the intellectual environment got out of control. As a matter of fact, Nadia had a point in preferring a lion's roar to a human's roar. In front of the latter, you don't stand a chance. It's as if reality itself had taken a powerful drug it can't wake up from. Not a synthetically obtained one, brimming with chemicals, but a homemade kitchen drug. Those are the most dangerous. Even here, off the continent, the tension is in the air. Nevertheless, people try to disguise it. They try to be reasonable, someone has to. Let's do an interview, right? And with whom? With the one who's in some way responsible for it. Well, people don't know that. Miss Reportress, just follow me. I'll show you the island. Like, not long ago I showed it to Nadia. Walking seems to me to be putting off the daily threats and situations one avoids to face. A globetrotter could cancel wars, could make them redundant. But we'll never be able to cancel his shadow, Quijana said. Now the reporter probably squints into her screen. She's irritated but keeps her composure. Am I to be blamed for other people's deviant minds? I despise guilt, because it's just not the way to tackle a problem. Things aren't binary. They aren't about control or guilt. Actually, guilt and control are each other's shadow, and I was always interested in finding something that is full and round, godly, like the perfect hideout, and doesn't have the need to cast a shadow of itself. The complete artist is the one that doesn't need to divide himself into artworks. In the beginning, the Quijana thing was like that. The chain of Nadia's gaze upon me that morning, that can't be broken. In fact, I feel it once again clutching me, both brutally and motherly. As I walk now around the island again, I presented to her the island that night. Now I'm revisiting that moment. Is it weird to make a documentary of someone's past? During that walk, Nadia was unusually calm, boiling inside, far from my scrutiny. She told me she knew everything would collapse, but that it was necessary to happen. What can you make of that? Perhaps it's a woman's asset to talk in riddles, on a low, wise voice, to build up the mystery around them. And even when that mystery is slightly counterfeit, to the extent that I, the man, would rather run away, it's still charming and melting that that particular woman chose you to bestow her berserk intuition upon your life's simple and logical deeds. Nadia truly was a shaman of her role as the intuitive woman. Her life was full of misery, and that misery kept her warm. That's what I told myself after meeting her by the gorge that morning. A slim young woman with a lace top and a skirt made out of what I then found out to be dreadlocks from a Rastafarian ex-boyfriend of hers. She scalped him after a one-night stand and seamed that unspeakable skirt, the dry, blooded scalp around her womb, because all he thought of was her. Nadia had all sorts of one-night stands, I learned from her. Apparently, no man wanted her for more than one night, which is both awkward and understandable. Awkward if you consider she was a fine woman. Understandable if you consider her rash temper. Moreover, she was fond of superstitions like no other. Zodiacs, tarot, ancient mythologies, and symbolism. Everything is related and means something, she used to say. The symbol of her miserable life? A lion. More accurately, a lion's roar. And oddly enough, that was part of her job description. She hunted lions' roars for a living. I guess she still does, but it comes easier to talk about her in the past. As you heard, she didn't hunt lions, because that would be atrocious. Poor animals, she said. But their very roars. According to Nadia, the roars reminded you of your inner self that you lock deep inside, and listening to them enables you to release the psychological pressure. Fear is the routine we choked our mental systems with, she used to say. That night, during our walk, she said she liked Helgoland. She claimed she could hear a lion roar by the gorge. There's no zoo in Helgoland, and, needless to say, no lions. And when I've told her that, a swift, angry shiver crossed her body. We are not that different, you and I, darling. I deal with lion roars, you with human roars. Truth be told, and I was soon to vividly realize it, this was sort of anarchy with a guideline. But isn't heaven that as well? Anarchy and rehab for imagination and egos. Mass protests cloaked the streets of main European capitals. Museum managers and art dealers were accused of corrupting people's minds in order to get their way with dirty capitalistic methods. Art is just manipulation, the crowds were screaming. Quijana is just another god and another religion they invent to take our money. I am Quijana, certain artists said, each on his own behalf. Even Nadia told me once that Quijana is her father, and he's proud I risked summoning him. The lion's roars must have driven her insane. Mr. Kadic destroyed art and turned into money and crime, the crowds say. I for one never thought these could happen. It was heaven gone bad. The outcome of freedom, right, Miss Reportress? I've been rowing around this island for hours now, and strangely, I haven't bumped into anyone. How come? No sailors, no fishermen? This island is all abandoned. The only mark I see here and there is the scribbling, walls, and labels on rocks and walls. This isn't an interview or a documentary. This is an interrogatory, and my only testimony, my only ally is my creation, Quijana, my only perfect hideout. Museums are sanitariums for artworks, Quijana said. People dress in their best and go there to visit the sick artworks. They pay them a visit as if they were patients. That was one of the most famous Quijana quotes roaming about, and it went on. Museums are not represented by artworks. They are comprised of two other fundamental things, walls and labels. That's all. When we childishly think of a museum, we picture a building with white walls and with labels on them. I too could have been in that depot with the victims. Maybe it's all a matter of timing. Nadia came into my life and prevented me from boarding that plane to Berlin. If I had walked out on her then to get on my plane, I would have died in the fire. Perhaps the relationship rules of contemporary society, the hit-and-run principle, don't always pull one out as the winner. And that night too, she was the first to leave, and me chasing her throughout the airport hub like a madman. I'm not sure if this really is an interrogatory, but I have the impression that even when I speak inside my head, you can hear me. My voice is only the shadow of my words, the yellow jelly trickle from a snail. You, Miss Reportress, or whoever you are, timing wasn't on the side of those youngsters dying in the fire. For some reason, although there followed all sorts of horrifying terrorist distortions of Quijana's sayings, that fire is the one haunting me, because it was completely out of control. If the leech poet were to change me into a word, what would it be? Guilt or control? I'll lay in this chamber's bed and I'll wait asleep, without faking it this time. For her to come to gaze upon me, to ask me for another testimony.